Well, former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin announcing on CNBC this morning that he is putting together an investor group to buy TikTok. This coming after the House advanced a controversial bill Wednesday giving China's ByteDance 6 months to divest TikTok or face a ban. Mnuchin saying that he thinks the legislation should pass the Senate and TikTok should be sold. For more on TikTok's fate, we want to bring in Dan Ives, Managing Director and Senior Equity Research Analyst at Wedbush Securities. Dan, it's good to have you here. So the headline this morning that Mnuchin is trying to put together an investor group to buy TikTok. What do you think of that?
I mean, join the club. I mean, many others strategically and financially are going to go after TikTok. The issue is we only think there's a 25% chance that this legislation actually gets done in terms of approved through the Senate. And it's a slippery slope because at the end of the day, no one's going to buy TikTok without the actual code and source and algorithms. And that's the whole issue here. China and ByteDance are not going to do that.
Dan, 25% chance that TikTok ultimately gets banned. That's not nothing. How messy could this process be? Because I remember 4 years ago when we had Trump in office and we were dealing with these headlines here at Yahoo Finance. It was messy back then. What do you see the procedure here and how long could this get dragged out?
This is going to be a Broadway show, essentially in the Beltway. In terms of as this all plays out, our whole issue is it's sort of touching the third rail in terms of where this could all go relative to First Amendment rights, others getting involved, China retaliatory. And that's why the Senate, I mean, we guys see, right now a lot of questions in terms of Schumer. Does he actually bring it onto the floor? We don't think so, at least in the near term. But in terms of Mnuchin and others, I mean, there's going to be a line for those that want to buy TikTok. But the whole issue continues to be the source code that will not come with it. And that's really the golden jewel.
So, Dan, you're saying a lot of people are going to be interested. Who? And who does it make most sense for?
Look, I mean, if Microsoft, Oracle, I mean, any big tech player, Amazon would look, I mean, any big U.S. big tech player, as well as strategic and financial buyers are going to get lined up. But then it comes down to, without the source code, the value is massively different than with. ByteDance China, they're not going to ultimately be a for sale, and they're going to sell this with the source code. This will also have massive regulatory legal issues as it gets held up. And also, if U.S. puts a ban on it and then it gets bought by some of our biggest U.S. technology companies, I mean, that heads down a very slippery slope, especially with retaliatory that we would see coming from Beijing.
Yeah, so Dan, who is at most risk then if we do see retaliatory from Beijing? Is it Tesla? Is it Apple? Who then stands to really be caught in that crossfire?
Well, that's the issue. I mean, right now for Cook and Musk, I mean, they're watching this closely because they know retaliatory, they got the bullseye in the back. I mean, Jared talked about it, but if this is just theater, just like call it 4 years ago, It's all for naught. It's really a road to nowhere. I mean, it looks great in terms of the microphones down the Beltway, but once you go down, you can't put genie back in the bottle. And we don't think the marketing and pricing and positives from Meta here, because the market's basically pricing, and this is at a standstill.
Dan, I keep coming back to this no source code, and I'm trying to wrap my head around what's going on here. If a sale takes place without the source code, who maintains it? How is it maintained? Because what I understand is that source code is key to getting TikTok around certain app store in terms of Apple's app store and Google's as well. It helps them circumvent a lot of the restrictions that a lot of companies in the U.S. happen to face.
Yeah, look, without the source code, the value is 60-70% less. So that, and then ByteDance and China are never going to sell this with the source code in a for sale. But again, that's why Oracle, Project Texas, that's the whole goal in terms of no backdoors to Beijing. CFIUS is obviously still ongoing investigation with no timetable. This is very complex as this all plays out. And obviously a groundswell in terms of the House. But now from a Senate perspective, from all of our advisors and all of our work in the Beltway, I mean, we still believe 25% chance this ultimately gets banned for sale in terms of on Biden's desk. But until that, it's not just Mnuchin. Others are going to line up
Yeah,
to potentially buy what's really a unique golden asset.
and they're lining up to buy something they don't even quite understand what the finished product is or what's going to be sold. China came out recently, I believe, and walked back. They said that there is no data that exists in China. So do we even have a handle on where that data exists? Is it in China? If it's not in China, where in the world is it? And is that data part of the sale? I just can't wrap my head around this.
Yeah, that was the whole part of the CFIUS. And even last March, when TikTok was in front of the House, any backdoor. That's why Oracle has been involved as a strategic partner. That's the CFIUS investigation. It's all about that. So the problem here, it's easy to get into the sort of grandstanding, but then you have 150 million users, one of the most popular social media apps out there in election year. So 18 to 24-year-olds, like, you're going to be banning TikTok in the face of that. So there's a lot of third rail issues here, but it goes back to, do you buy an F1 car without the engine?
Heck no.
I would not buy an F1 car without the engine, so I don't even know why it's going up in the auction block, but I appreciate you sharing your best guesses about what we know right now. Dan Ives, Managing Director and Senior
Thanks.
Equity Research Analyst at Wedbush. Great to see you.